Naszym następnym gościem jest przedstawiciel firmy Enterprise DB, największego dostawcy globalnego produktów i usług opartych o najpopularniejszą bazę danych open source, czyli PostgreSQL. Powitajmy wiceprezesa Enterprise DB na region Europy, James Brayshaw.
Is this mic working? Good. Oh, great. So, well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to be here in Poland to talk at the Open Source Conference. I was supposed to be here last year, but unfortunately I fell sick and couldn't travel. So, actually, in some ways, I'm pleased to be here because it's the 10th year anniversary, and EDB has been sponsoring this event since year one. We see it as a critical part of the open source community, and we're delighted to be part of that and helping move that forward. In fact, it's quite ironic. I think I was here just over 10 years ago, and at that time it was to do with GIS and the open data community and work around that. So it's amazing how these things continue to move forward. So what I want to talk to you about over the next 15-20 minutes is about the race for digital. You heard from Michel at Red Hat in terms of the digital transformation that's going on in the industry, the need to be fast, the need for speed. Will that speed, will it change you or could it break you? When we look at what's going on, and particularly MIT, in a technology review recently, determined that at the current rate, 3 out of the 4 companies that sit in the S&P 500 will drop out in the next 10 years. Through lack of innovation. By far the most dramatic change I think we've ever seen in history. The rate of change in what's happening and technology driving that is unprecedented. And if you think about that, even if 2 out of the next 4 companies, or 1, transform, that is an amazing transformation. So what I want to talk to you about is what's happening in the database world. And in terms of digital transformation, what that means in terms of both the opportunity that's exciting, but also the risk that could be scary. I think some of the recent issues around security shows some of the concerns and things that can happen when they go wrong. But like it or not, organizations out there are increasingly seeing a demand for change, for improvement, to be faster. And the explosion in data and information is happening at a faster rate. The volumes are increasing, and there's a will and a need to manage that more effectively. And you've all heard the numbers. So how soon is now? So you've heard the numbers. 90% of all data was created in the last 2 years. This is projected by IDC to grow tenfold by the year 2020. So the volumes are just rocketing. And this creates an unprecedented era in business that really needs to harness and capitalize on that data. And using new technologies, such as you heard from Red Hat, around mobile, Internet of Things, the connected car, all these things are driving that transformation and need to better understand, better analyze, capture, manage, and maintain that data. So it's a case for growth and a case for profitability. Most organizations are trying to drive increased profitability, seeing the pressure on their costs, but ultimately it's about survival, and it's about survival against competition. And as you can see from some of the logos up there, it's not just the traditional competition that organizations that you work for or work with face. It's also the new breed of companies. These pure digital economies that can appear, they have no legacy business systems or processes or even business models. They can appear, and overnight they can disrupt a whole market. And that transformation can be rapid. And we see that permeating right across all our different parts of life. It's from transport through to music, to video. Everything that we do is being touched by that digital transformation. So therefore, the speed to adapt and the need to adjust is becoming almost real time. So how many of you in this room feel today that the work you're doing is moving fast enough and that you're keeping up with the demands of the market? But at what risk, in terms of speed, is that priority? We all know that things like data integrity, system security, performance, these are the key elements that we need when we're looking at a database. When we're looking at managing information, these are critical to running our organization information. But to do that, we want to be able to develop and adapt and win in that environment, both fast but also under control. The faster we go, the more we have to develop, the quicker we have to do it, the more chance are that we could lose control. And the worst case scenario is that we don't actually complete what we did or needed to do, we don't finish on time, and in some ways we may not even finish at all, and we might end up in the ditch. So finding and maintaining the right balance between speed and control is essential to winning that race for that digital transformation. With all of this, and I think it was really good just to see the slide from Docker in terms of the ecosystem of technologies. Having to go fast in this environment with an increasing level of choice of applications and technologies and platforms and ways of delivery, and a drive around all of that being predominantly open source, means that it's getting fragmented. The IT infrastructure that we're operating on is fragmenting and expanding. So speed to market also opens up great opportunities, but it also means we have to go fast, but we also have to think about how we bring that together and manage that in the longer term. We can't simply start on a journey not knowing where it's going. In a 3 to 5 year horizon, it's important we understand how these things fit together. And a lot of these new technologies are also presenting challenges for all of us in terms of knowledge, data integrity issues, skills, the tools, the platforms, and the ability to use that information. So when we look at databases in particular, there really are two answers at the moment that are really emerging. There's the traditional existing way in terms of moving, but has that significant downsides. You can stay, particularly in terms of some of the legacy systems, but they present a series of choices and also constraints. Alternatively, we can move to the rapid emerging new technologies to solve some of these problems, but again, they're not proven in terms of their ability to manage in an integrated way. They're not necessarily the best practices defined, and so you've got these two choices. So the option one, we all know this one in the database world. It's called the gas guzzler. It's the largest technology company, or one of the largest technology companies in the world. People don't get fired for buying this, or they didn't used to get fired for buying this. And the benefits, it's easy, it's big, it's comfortable, it's safe, it performs well, it's holistic, it works in my environment, but it plods along at reasonable speed. The drawback, though, it's increasingly costing me money, it's crazy expensive, its licensing is inflexible because it's a big commercial business that works on the basis of traditional licensing models, and it locks you in. It's relentless in terms of its ability to keep sucking more money out of you, and let's face it, once you buy it, you're stuck with it. There's no real integration also into that open environment that we see and you see and work with and develop. So when you look at it, whilst it seems the safe option, it's going to cost you an awful lot of money, and if you're a company that's trying to drive down cost, that's going to give you some challenge. So the other way, let's all go electric. Let's all head off and start getting rid of our cars and going nice high-performance electric. It's low cost, it's fit for purpose for doing that job, it's cool, it's cutting edge, and we all look really good in it. However, the drawbacks, whilst the technology is there, typically in a database world, it's a technology designed for a specific purpose. It typically is driven around something like graph or a document or a NoSQL type environment. It's big data. It's designed for a particular task. It's not looking at a whole range of activity. And there's no real blueprint in terms of how to use that to get access and gather information from that source. Because at the end of the day, whilst we're managing the information, really we're looking to use that information to derive knowledge and therefore make better decisions faster and quicker. So it can't sit in isolation of our current environment. They're great technologies, but they need to be deployed and part of a defined strategy. So what you really need is the hybrid. You need something that's fast, but you also need something that is actually traditional and supports that holistic world of where you've come from, the legacy world. And so I pose to you, if you want a database management system that spans across those multiple workloads, so it isn't just one type of workload, that gives you flexibility, is open source, it integrates with your legacy, and it really does provide that ability to manage those specialist solution informations without the high cost and lock-in of a traditional database commercial vendor and meet those requirements, then there is a solution today. And really, that is there to provide the ability to not discard also all that you've done in the past. Because adopting new models can be expensive and typically require you to stop doing what you've been doing and change. What you actually want to be able to do is deploy these new systems or deploy systems without disrupting your current environments that can work alongside, integrate and leverage that legacy. And also start to evolve and develop in terms of your database, as your database strategy starts to evolve. And I've posed to you as Postgres. From Clark Kent to you-know-who, Superman. Ultimately, Postgres provides one solution that meets across those two areas. It's been around for a long time. It's been in the open source community for tens of years. And due to the robustness of an open source community that continues to thrive and grow and is able to significantly drive the development at a faster rate than we see in some of the commercial vendors. And together with EDB, we are, as a community, we're developing and rapidly changing that database. I mean, Postgres now, according to DB Engines recently, is the 4th most popular database engine. It's the #1, according to Gartner, in terms of open source. So Postgres has become a serious alternative to those big legacy database systems. And it also, with the work and development that EDB's provided around that open source kernel, has created a platform that now is able to really start to meet not just the periphery, it starts to meet mission critical systems. And you'll see that from some of the companies that are now down that journey. So this really does make Postgres the ideal data management platform to sit within that growing environment. You know, it is complete. It's multimodal, it's relational, it supports documents, it also is key value pairs. It has all the major database types, from JSON, from GIS, from XML, from structured, unstructured data, and semi-structured. So it supports all those different types. And in terms of developers and programming languages, it supports all that you would expect, such as Python, Node.js, and things like PL/SQL. And therefore, that also provides the advantage about what EDB has done with the community around Postgres, is create that compatibility for running Oracle. The ability to actually put that information that sits in Oracle and run it natively in Postgres. And from a clear-eyed point of view, performance is increased over the years to now where it is comparable. There's no upfront licensing. Subscriptions, portability. Again, you heard it from both previous talks about wanting to move things around in different environments. Again, that's a critical part of what Postgres can do. You can port it across multiple platforms, cloud, on-prem, hybrid. You're not restricted. So I would pose that Postgres really is now becoming one of the rightful place to help enable that digital transformation from a database perspective. So let's have a quick look at this in more detail. So when we actually look at what's going on in terms of customers and clients and what they're trying to achieve, there are really 4 areas. There's new application development, there's application modernization, there's replacing our legacy database systems, such as the big commercial vendors, and then there's cloud replatforming. And Postgres now has capabilities and ability to sit in all 4 of those areas. And you can see from the names of customers that are on that journey doing one or maybe more of those things. And what's important and what we're seeing is it's moving from being project-focused to business-focused. It's moving from looking at a single project to actually becoming part of the corporate infrastructure as a choice platform for those companies. And thinking more locally in terms of Europe, organizations such as BBVA, that Michel mentioned, Santander, Telefonica, Vodafone, these are organizations that are embracing EDB Postgres. And then even more local, T-Mobile, Zeus recently, Orange, Volvo, Ericsson, and Sony. Organizations that are committed to Postgres and committed to EDB. And the way that we're delivering and meeting that need is, in terms of those 4 areas, is through delivery of a platform around Postgres. So it's taking the core kernel and delivering a range of tools and capabilities, providing functionality to deploy that in multiple platforms, and then a range of support services that really make it all work, because you want to make sure that it's actually meeting your requirements. We particularly focus a lot around things like resilience, security, high availability, and the ability to manage an enterprise class capability for things like security that comes as part of what EDB does. And finally, I think the area that we all see now, and increasingly, if it's not cloud-based, then there's something wrong. What we're doing and what we've developed to meet that demand is something called Arc. Arc is a next generation platform management for actually deploying in minutes. You'd heard previously about taking days and weeks to deploy infrastructure. We're doing the same on the database to allow you to deploy it in things like OpenShift and OpenStack. It allows you to set it up, run it in a hybrid cloud, private cloud, or even a public cloud under AWS, and start to manage that whole database Postgres infrastructure. And we've got further work going on with things like Cloud Foundry, VMware, Google, and also Microsoft Azure, and also even Docker. So it's that whole area now is starting to become really important. So I want to thank you for your time. I'm conscious I'm between you and coffee. A break, you've all sat and had to listen to 3 presentations. I know how hard that is. Thank you very much. Please, please, please do drop on by to my colleagues to find out more about what's going on in the Postgres world and how we can help you. Thank you very much.